who is required to deduct the TDS? And when the TDS is required to be deducted? Once the TDS is deducted from any payments, then by which due date it should be paid. So I think we discussed that. Okay, if there is a TDS has been deducted in a particular month, then in most of the cases there are a number of categories. Based on the categories, the deductor has to deposit the tax. But the most widely is it is the 7th of the next month. So in whichever the month the TDS has been deducted, by the end of that month and the 7 days from the end of the month, means it's the 7th of the next month, he has to pay the tax for first 11 months. And last month there is a 130 days is given. So that is the exception only for the month of March. And once they have done this, they have deducted the TDS as whatever the section is applicable to the deductor, and then they've paid within the due dates. Then for the at the end of each quarter, there is a TDS is return required to be furnished within a 1 month from the end of the quarter. So that's we already learned. Right? And mostly there are two widely used TDS return is one is from TDS for salary, which is 24Q, and other than salary is 26Q. And if it is non-resident, there is a form number 27, right? So that's what we were discussed, right? A little bit. And not only that, once you know uh, file the TDS returns, uh, you within the due date of 15 days of filing the TDS return, you have to issue a certificate to the persons of whom the deductor has deducted the TDS. तो deductor ने जिसका भी TDS काटा है, right? उसको TDS certificate भी देना है. So TDS process is quite extensive in nature. There are a number of compliances which is required to be fulfilled by the persons who is the deductor under the Income Tax Act. So TDS काटना भी है रिस्पेक्टिव पेमेंट्स के ऊपर. काटने के बाद विद इन ड्यू डेट पेड भी करना है. ड्यू डेट में पेड करने के बाद TDS का रिटर्न भी भरना है. उसका फॉर्म भी सही होना चाहिए. 24 और 26Q is widely used, and if it is non-resident, 27Q. Uh, and that four unique sections we have learned, that is chalan cum return, वो chalan भी है और return भी है. And then you have to issue the TDS certificate. तो आपने जिसका भी TDS काटा है वो TDS काटने के बाद उसको फॉर्म इश्यू करना है TDS का. So there are basically there are two major widely used form. One is form number 16, which is issued if the TDS has been deducted from salary. That is form number 16 only. And 16A other than salary. Other than salary होता है वहाँ पे 16A होता है. And the three unique form, right? That 194 IA, IB and 194M. So उसके अंदर जो TDS के फॉर्म थे 26QB, 26QC and 26QD, उसके लिए TDS सर्टिफिकेट which is issued by the deductor. तो जिसने भी TDS काटा होगा, जिसका भी काटा होगा, उसको फॉर्म नंबर 16B, 16C and 16D इश्यू करना पड़ेगा. So that's what we have learned up to the moment. And then I give you, if someone whose tax has been deducted, because the TDS provisions are applicable to the persons who is making the payments. So as the income tax provisions are applicable to the deductor or the person who is making the payment, but the person who is receiving the income is not liable to pay the tax on it, because his income is not liable to tax. In that circumstances, he can use form number 15G, 15H. That's, I think, what we were discussing in the last lecture. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
तो हमने ये 15G और 15H के बारे में पढ़ा था। आज हम उससे आगे जाने वाले हैं फॉर्म नंबर 13, right? So what is the utility of form number 13? हालांकि ये फॉर्म नंबर 15G और 15H के बारे में बहुत कुछ मटेरियल के अंदर नहीं लिखा हुआ है, बट एज आई एक्सप्लेन यू विद दिस एग्जांपल के मिस्टर एम है और उसका इंटरेस्ट 10 लाख है एसबीआई के साथ या कोई भी नेशनलाइज बैंक या कहीं पे भी एफडी करके रखी है और उसके ऊपर कोई इसको इंटरेस्ट मिल रहा है तो टीडीएस कट जाएगा. The person who is making the payment will deduct the TDS, but his income in the previous year is not exceeding the uh, amount which is chargeable to tax. So in that circumstances, if Mr. M is non-senior citizen, he can submit a form number 15G, or if he is a senior citizen, he can submit the form number 15H. And based on that certificate, the deductor or the person who is making the payment will not deduct the TDS. In the last lecture, I told you that it is about the interest, but it could be anything. If Mr. M has a one big property and he has given on rent to someone, right, and someone is making the payment of rent and he is deducting the tax, right? Suppose he has a very big bungalow and he has given on a rent of 40,000 per month. So 4,80,000 he is going to receive क्योंकि उसके 40,000 पर मंथ के रेंट के ऊपर दिया हुआ है. So 12 महीने में it is 4,80,000 रुपीज. तो जो पर्सन है वो तो 2,40,000 से ज्यादा रेंट का पेमेंट करता है तो टीडीएस काटेगा ही. लेकिन मिस्टर एम की इनकम 5 लाख से कम है. He is not required to pay any tax. He is an individual. So in that circumstances, he can use a form number 15G or 15H. So form number 15G or 15H is in most of the sections are useful. Only condition is that the deductor is required to deduct the TDS and the recipient is not supposed to pay any tax on it. So in that circumstances, form number 15G and 15H will come to a rescue to the recipient where he can submit to the deductor this form number 15G and 15H. This form number 15G and 15H is nothing but one kind of a declaration where the recipient is certifying that he is not liable to pay tax because he is a lower income. And based on that certification, the deductor will not deduct the tax. So it will save times of the government, SSC and everyone. क्योंकि अगर उसका टीडीएस कट जाएगा उसको वो पैसा वापस चाहिएगा तो ऑब्वियसली जिसका टीडीएस कटा है उसको अपना इनकम टैक्स का रिटर्न भरना पड़ेगा और इनकम टैक्स के रिटर्न के अंदर वो इनकम शो करेगा. वो इनकम के ऊपर टैक्स नहीं आएगा और जो टीडीएस कटा होगा वो क्लेम करेगा. सो द गवर्नमेंट हैज टू पे द रिफंड द टीडीएस व्हिच इज पेड, so that should be refunded to the recipient. So government says that we can avoid that kind of a situation if the people will use the form number 15G and 15H. So this is what all about. So administrative smoothness and facilitation of the administration smoothly. That's the reason this form number 15G and 15H has been designed. Now, if you look at to the form number 13, what about the 13? Form number 13 is one kind of a form which is available to the recipient if he or she is not required to pay the tax, but his tax has been deducted, and where his income is not less than the taxable income. So उनकी इनकम ज्यादा है लेकिन टैक्स नहीं आता है because of any of the reasons. So they cannot use the form number 15G or 15H क्योंकि इनकम तो ज्यादा है लेकिन जो टीडीएस कटता है वो बहुत ज्यादा कट जाता है. So let's take a simple example. Suppose, as I am a chartered accountant, I am taking the one example of a CF. Right. So suppose there is a Mr. M who is a individual practicing chartered accountant. So Mr. M is an individual and he is in a practice of CA and he has a firm as a proprietary firm where he become a chartered accountant. So suppose let's assume that Mr. M, a chartered accountant, is an auditor in 10 companies. So he is appointed as an auditor of 10 companies. Now let's take an example. Each company, so he is charging the audit fees for rendering the auditing services to all these 10 companies. So he's charging the audit fee. Fees. So obviously, these 10 companies are making the payment of audit fees to Mr. M for the services that Mr. M is rendering to the companies. So let hypothetically, I am saying that the 50,000 rupees, 50,000 for each company. So there are 10 companies. So the receipts am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Because there was some Okay, so again, I lost the connections. I think now it is clear. So again, I am telling you that we are discussing about when the form number 13 can be used by any persons whose tax has been deducted. So we take an example of Mr. M, who is a chartered accountant, who is an auditor in 10 companies, and he's rendering the auditing services to these 10 companies, and he's charging the fees of rupees 50,000 from all the 10 companies. So the gross receipts for Mr. M in a particular financial year is rupees 5 lakhs. Now, there is a section 194J which says that if any person is utilizing any professional services or any technical services, then if the amount of payment in during the previous year exceeds 30,000 rupees, that particular person has to deduct the tax at the rate of 10%. There are other provisions included in section 194J, but in case of audit fees payment, section 194J clearly says that the tax is to be deducted at the rate of TDS, should be deducted at the rate of 10%. So all these 10 companies, while making the payment of 50,000, they will deduct the 10% of 50,000 means 5,000. All the 10 company will deduct the TDS. So that comes out to be 50,000. So 50,000 TDS will be deducted. Now this 50,000 is deducted by 10 companies. They will deposit as per the due date to the government, and they will file the TDS return. Once they file the TDS return, they will show the PAN of Mr. M and say show against the PAN number of 5,000 by all the 10 companies. And then Mr. A's, as it is mentioned in the A's PAN, this 50,000 TDS will be reflected into the Mr. M's account. तो जब मिस्टर एम के अकाउंट में ये 50,000 आ जाएंगे, then when the Mr. M will file the return of income, Right? He will claim that he has already paid the tax of rupees 50,000, which is deducted from in the form of TDS. Now, all of you know that if Mr. M is a proprietorship, this is the gross receipts. He may have incurred an expenses on this 5 lakhs for rendering this auditing services. So he must have spent a lot of money either on salary of their audit teams and so many things. But hypothetically, we believe that there is no expense. Let assume that there is no. Still, that 5 lakh rupees in case of Mr. M, he is not required to pay the tax because up to 2.5 lakh, no tax, even if he is in old regime, and 2.5 lakh to 5 lakhs, it is 5%, but the rebate is available. So there is no tax. This entire 50,000 will be refunded when the Mr. M files the return of income. Suppose this will happen every year. Suppose in the next year, he become an auditor of, suppose let's take in 15 companies. So the 15 company will deduct the TDS. 7.5 lakh again, he can make a investment in housing loan interest and you know ATC deduction or ATCC deductions or income medical insurance premium, and he may or may not required to pay the tax. Maybe he or she is not required to make the payment, but still, as the TDS provisions are applicable to the companies, uh, the company will deduct the TDS. So in that circumstances, form number 13 may comes to rescue to Mr. M, who is a chartered accountant. In form number 13,
स्क्रीन नहीं दिखाई दे रही.
स्क्रीन नहीं दिखाई दे रही.
नहीं.
Okay, let me, yeah. Okay, fine. So now I've tried to, now is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So what form number 13? Form number 13 says that if the persons whose tax is deducted by the deductor is substantially a high amount, is of a substantial of a high amount. अगर कोई ऐसा पर्सन है जिसका टीडीएस जो कटता है टीडीएस के प्रोविजंस के हिसाब से वो सब्सटेंशियली हाई कट जाता है कंपेयर टू इट्स एक्चुअल टैक्स लायबिलिटी. उसकी जो एक्चुअल टैक्स लायबिलिटी है उसकी कंपैरिजन में जो टीडीएस के फॉर्म में उसका टीडीएस कटता है वो ज्यादा कट जाता है. सो फॉर्म नंबर 13 गिव्स यू एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू द डिडक्टी. तो जिसका टीडीएस कट रहा है उसके पास फॉर्म नंबर 13 का ऑप्शन है. अंडर फॉर्म नंबर 13 we can make an application to the assessing officer. So इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट के अंदर जो असेसिंग ऑफिसर है उसको एसएससी फॉर्म नंबर 13 सबमिट करेगा और उसके अंदर वो बताएगा कि पिछले 3-4 सालों में या 2-3 सालों में दिस इज माय इनकम जिसके ऊपर मेरा ये टीडीएस कट जाता है वो मेरी टैक्स लायबिलिटी से काफी ज्यादा आता है. या तो मेरी कोई टैक्स लायबिलिटी है ही नहीं लेकिन मेरा टीडीएस कट जाता है, या तो मेरा टीडीएस इतना ज्यादा कट जाता है कि उसकी कंपेयर में मेरी टैक्स लायबिलिटी बहुत कम है. और हर बार अपना टैक्स जो मेरा ज्यादा कट चुका है उसको रिफंड लेने के लिए मेरे को इनकम टैक्स का रिटर्न भरना पड़ता है और मेरे पैसे जब तक मेरे को रिफंड ना मिले तब तक ब्लॉक हो जाते हैं. तो दिस फॉर्म नंबर 13 के अंदर द एसएससी कैन मेक एन एप्लीकेशन टू द असेसिंग ऑफिसर एंड ही हैज टू इन दैट फॉर्म नंबर 13 द एसएससी हैज टू प्रिस्क्राइब एवरीथिंग कि भाई लास्ट 2-3 साल में उसकी ये इनकम थी और ये इनकम के ऊपर उसका इसी सेक्शन के अंदर टीडीएस कट गया था और वो इतना टीडीएस कटा था. जब फाइनल टैक्स लायबिलिटी पेड की तो उसमें टैक्स मेरा बहुत कम आ रहा था. तो बेस्ड ऑन दैट डॉक्यूमेंटरी एविडेंस द असेसिंग ऑफिसर इशू अ सर्टिफिकेट टू द एसएससी आइदर नॉन डिडक्शन ऑफ टैक्स. अगर एसएससी का कोई टैक्स आता ही बनता ही नहीं है राइट, तो ही इशू अ सर्टिफिकेट टू द एसएससी कि भाई आपका आपके जो भी डिडक्टर है आपकी जो इनकम है जो आपको इनकम का पेमेंट कर रहा है उसको जो टीडीएस के प्रोविजन एप्लीकेबल है उसको ये सर्टिफिकेट दे दो, क्योंकि मैं बता रहा हूं कि उसको टीडीएस काटने की जरूरत नहीं है। तो वो सर्टिफिकेट आपको इश्यू कर सकता है नॉन डिडक्शन ऑफ टैक्स। और अगर इसको ऐसा लगता है कि नहीं आपकी टैक्स लायबिलिटी तो आती है, थोड़ी बहुत तो टैक्स लायबिलिटी आती है, लेकिन आपका टैक्स बहुत ज्यादा कट जाए, तो ही मे इशू सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ लोअर डिडक्शन ऑफ टैक्स। सो यहाँ पे सेक्शन 115 जेबी में लिखा हुआ है कि भाई टैक्स इज 10%, he may issue the tax should be deducted at 5% or maybe at 1% instead of 10%. So किसी भी सेक्शन में जिसके भी जहां पे भी टीडीएस कट रहा है उसके जो परसेंटेज है टैक्स के उसको वो कम कर सकता है by issuing a certificate if the SSE make an application in form number 13. समझ में आ रहा है बच्चों? हेलो?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
फाइन, तब ठीक है, राइट। सो फॉर्म नंबर 15G, 15H और 15 सॉरी फॉर्म नंबर 15G, 15H एंड फॉर्म नंबर 13 क्या है वो आपको पता होना चाहिए, ठीक है। और उसके ऊपर एक छोटा सा शॉर्ट नोट जैसा आ जाए कि डिस्क्राइब व्हाट इज फॉर्म नंबर 15G, 15H एंड फॉर्म नंबर 13 एंड व्हेन इट इज यूज्ड एंड हाउ इट इज यूज्ड। Then you have to write whatever we understand just a few minutes back. Is it clear? Whatever I told you about form number 13, it is mentioned over here, obtaining the certificate of lower tax from the assessing officer, section 197. So that form number 13's provisions are given over here. The recipient can apply in form number 13. So if you want to go on, all these are the sections under which you can make an application to the assessing officer. Right? So either you lower rate of deduction or no deduction of tax, as the case may be. So that information is given over here. How to determine? This is what he or she will take into consideration. As far as 15G and 15H is concerned, so this is mentioned over here in this paragraph. Okay, fine. So now let's start with the TDS with respect to each of the sections. So basic overview हमने ले लिया. So TDS schemes हमने अच्छी तरीके से पढ़ी है. Now how the tax is deducted from salary, section 192. So I request you, if you have material, please go to the respective page of the material which you have in your hands. I am also opening in my hands, right? So ताकि हम एक same level पे आ सके. So section 192 is given on page number 586, which is in your hand, right? So when and how the tax is to be deducted at source from salary. Obviously, if there is an employer-employee relationship, if there is an employer-employee relationships, then there is a possibility of application of section 192. So there is a one, the payer is to be treated as employer who is making the payments of salary, and the recipient is the employee who is receiving the salary. So that is the employer-employee. The payment covered is the taxable salary of the employee. So only if the employee is receiving the salary which is taxable, if the employee is receiving the salary which is not taxable, so the salary up to 5 lakhs of rupees in old regime and salary up to 7 lakhs into the new regime are not liable to pay any tax on it. So if they are not, so if any person who is earning a salary, or the person who is making the payment of salary up to 5 lakhs in case of old regime and up to 7 lakhs in case of new regime, he or she as a deductor or employer are not supposed to deduct any TDS. So section 192 will not be applicable. The payment covered taxable salary At what time the tax has to be deducted? At the time of payment. So सैलरी का जब भी पेमेंट होगा उसी समय पे TDS काट लेना पड़ेगा. Maximum which can be paid without the tax deduction, ना the amount of exemption limit. जब तक उसकी इनकम नहीं आती है, taxable income नहीं आती है, तब तक there is no requirement of deducting the TDS from salary. Rate of tax deducted at source. Normal rate applicable to an individuals. तो जिसकी सैलरी कट रही है उसकी उसको जो भी एप्लीकेबल है उस हिसाब से TDS काटना है. When the provisions are not applicable, ऐसा कुछ है ही नहीं है. कब? जब उसकी अमाउंट एग्जम्पशन लिमिट से कम है और टैक्सेबल इनकम नहीं है, तब TDS नहीं काटना है. Is it possible to get the payment without tax deductions or with lower tax deduction? Yes. The employee can make an application in form number 13 to the assessing officer to get the certificate of lower tax deductions or no tax deductions. अगर है ना उसकी टैक्सेबल इनकम उतनी ज्यादा नहीं है और टैक्स नहीं कट रहा है और उसको टैक्स रिफंड ही आता है, then he can make an application in form number 13 to the assessing officer. Employer may at the time of deducting the tax at source increase or decrease the amount to be deducted for the purpose of adjusting any previous deficiency or excess deductions. So how to compute the taxable salary or tax thereon? So this, all is given. So for computing the taxable salary, refer to the chapter 4 and chapter 11, right? So chapter 4 is actually about the salary. सैलरी के बारे में था तो फिर वो तो आपने पढ़ा होगा, ऐसा मान लिया जाता है. तो सैलरी के अंदर तो देयर आर बेसिक सैलरी plus DA forming part or not forming part, and then allowances and perquisites. So total of all should be treated as salary, right? And if it is taxable, the tax is required to be deducted. So यहाँ पे you can imagine, as per section 192, right? The employer has to deduct the TDS from the payment of salary of all its employees. So can you imagine if there is a one company where there is 100 employees, right? And the TDS is required to be deducted of the persons who have a taxable income. Then that company has to make the calculations of all that, and whatever the actual amount of TDS, it is required to be deducted. Same way, if there is a 200 employees or a 500 employees or 5,000 employees, maybe. So in the big companies, there are lakhs of employees. तो उन सबका TDS काटना पड़ता है और कटता है प्रैक्टिकल वर्ल्ड में. So there are payroll softwares. सॉफ्टवेयर होंगे फिर वहां पे जितने नंबर ऑफ एम्प्लॉय ज्यादा होंगे उतने सॉफ्टवेयर बढ़ते जाएंगे, बिकॉज इट इज टू डू मैन्युअली. इफ देयर आर 500 employees or 2,000 employees or 3,000 employees, it is not possible to do manually every month, because the TDS is required to be deducted on a monthly basis, because the salary will be payable on a monthly basis. But how it should be calculated? So it should be, as I told you, it should be calculated the basic salary plus DA plus all kinds of allowances and all kinds of perquisites, and whatever the exempt portion is there, you have to nullify it and you have to add it. So you have here there are few calculations is given in your material, like house rent allowances. If you are paying an house rent allowances and the SSA is claiming the exemption from the house rent allowances, then obviously the employee has to furnish the rent receipts to the employer, and it is necessary. And if the rent is paid is more than 1 lakh per annum, he has to the property of तो जिसके पास से rent लिया है उसके पास से ये certificate लेता. Concerned employee should submit to the employer a written statement pinpointing the rent paid, name of the landlord, address of the property, and the PAN to the employer and a PAN of the landlord. PAN is required only if the rent paid is more than 1 lakh per annum. So 1 लाख से ज्यादा का है तो उसको लैंडलॉर्ड का PAN भी चाहिए, है ना, तो वो चाहिएगा. अगर रेंट रिसिप्ट 3,000 से या उससे कम है तो फिर आपको रेंट रिसिप्ट की जरूरत नहीं है. 3,000 से ज्यादा है तो रेंट रिसिप्ट भी लेनी पड़ेगी. So suppose you are in a company and you are in company of the TDS department, and you are supposed to deduct the TDS from the employee. And suppose you are an employee of a company where there are 500 employees. वो 500 में से अगर 200 एम्प्लॉई ऐसे है जो जिसको एचआरए मिलता है और एचआरए का एग्जम्पशन क्लेम करते हैं, तो फिर आपको उसके पास से ये सारी डिटेल लेनी पड़ेगी, बिकॉज यू हैव टू डू द कैलकुलेशंस. Other incomes of the employee, an employee at his option can declare his other income to the employer. He cannot declare negative income except the house property loss. तो वो अदर इनकम भी एम्प्लॉयर को बता सकता है, तो एम्प्लॉयर को उसको कंसिडर करके उसके ऊपर जो टैक्स बनता है वो कैलकुलेट करके डिडक्ट करना है. डिडक्शंस, अगर इंडिविजुअल एम्प्लॉई है जो भी कंपनी का, अगर वो ये डिडक्शन क्लेम करता है तो इस डिडक्शन के प्रूफ लेने के और ये सारे डिडक्शंस अलाउड करने के. टैक्स लायबिलिटी, और उसके बेस के ऊपर टैक्स लायबिलिटी. द टैक्स इज टू बी डिडक्टेड ऑन टैक्सेबल इनकम एट द रेट एप्लीकेबल for the financial year, and these rates are given in appendix 1. तो उस हिसाब से आपको TDS काटना पड़ेगा, right? So let's take a simple example. Let me give you 192. There is an ABC Limited. Okay, right? And then so let's take an example. There is an A, B, and C are the 3 employees. ABC Limited is an employer. Suppose the annual salary of A is suppose 6 lakhs. Salary of B is suppose, let's take an 7 lakhs, and C is 10 lakhs. This is what is the salary structure. Now, and there is a suppose P and Q also. Their salary is, one salary is 4,50,000 per annum, and the Q salary is 2,40,000. Now, as far as P and Q is concerned, they are not supposed to pay the tax, because in case of Q, the salary income which the ABC Limited is paying to Q is only 2,40,000, which is below the exemption limit, so TDS is not applicable. As far as P is concerned, up to 2.5 lakh, there is no tax, even though it's in old regime or new regime. I am not talking about the new regime. I am talking only about the old regime. So, but still, he has an income of 2.5 lakh to 4.5 lakh will be chargeable to tax. But as his total income is below 5 lakh, and we are assuming this, so the rebate is available. Again, he is not required to pay any tax. So again, the TDS provisions will not be applicable. It's not applicable over here. But 6 lakhs, 7 lakhs, or 10 lakhs, you need to ask the employees whether they are claiming the deductions on any of the sections of ATC to ATU, their housing loan interest, or so and so, whatever the deduction they are claiming. Suppose deductions claimed by A is suppose 90,000 in ATC or ATD or any deductions. So total is, paying only, he is saving and claiming the deductions of 90,000. Here, the B is very, very sensitive. So this 90,000 includes the standard deductions of salary of 50,000 rupees. So 50,000 of standard deductions, and remaining 40,000 he is claiming either in ATC, ATD, whatever the sections are available. So, but total deductions available to A is 90,000. So his taxable income comes out to be this minus this. So 5,10,000. Now here, in case of B is claiming the standard deduction of 50,000 plus ATC deduction of debt to 1.5 lakh. So his deduction is 2 lakhs. So his taxable income is C, he is also claiming the only the deduction of 50,000 of deductions and 1.5 lakh of ATC. And he has also deductions of 15,000 of ATD. So totally he is claiming 2 lakh 15,000. So his taxable income, it comes out to be 7 lakh 5,000. So as they all the three are claiming the deductions, they are in the new regimes, and this is a tax liability. So what is the tax on it? If you look at to that, up to 2.5 lakh, no tax. 2.5 lakh to 5 lakhs, 5%, and above, so above 5 lakhs, that is 10,000. So उसके ऊपर आपको लगेगा 20%. और उसके ऊपर जो 20% लगेगा उसके अंदर आपको ऐड करना है 12,500. और उसके ऊपर जो भी आएगा, right, that's you have to multiply it with 1.04 health and education cess. So the total tax liability comes out to be 15,080. कैसा है पता चला ना? ये जो 10,000 है उसके ऊपर 20%, राइट? सो 2,000, 10,000 के 20% मीन्स 2,000, और 2.5 lakh to 5 lakhs 5% means 12,500. So 2,000 plus 12,500, it comes out to be 14,500, and then health and education says 4%. So I have multiplied with, use the formula to calculate that. So it comes out to be this. Rebate is not available because my taxable income is exceeding 5 lakhs of rupees. Now, in case of B, even though his income is 7 lakhs, he is a deduction of 2 lakhs, his taxable income is 5 lakhs, so the tax comes out to be nil, because up to 2.5 lakh, no tax. 2.5 lakh to 5 lakh, there is a 12,500, but 12,500 rebate is available, so the tax will become nil. Whereas in case of C, it is this minus 5 lakhs, because वो डिडक्शन क्लेम कर रहा है, और उसके ऊपर जितने आएगा उसके ऊपर में 20% टैक्स लगेगा, राइट? उसके बाद I have to add, right? So one more column, but for that I will add 12,500, because up to 2.5 lakh nil, but 2 lakh to 5 lakh 5% means 12,500, और उसके ऊपर 20%, तो उसके ऊपर 20% यहाँ पे कैलकुलेट हो आ जाएंगे, राइट? और ये सब होने के बाद उसके ऊपर हेल्थ एंड एजुकेशन सेस, ऑब्वियसली that comes out to be 72,280. Now this much TDS is required to be deducted from the salary of A and C by ABC Limited. There is no choice. So whatever the payments are making divided by 12, तो हर मंथ इतना TDS काटना पड़ेगा दोनों एम्प्लॉय का. In case of A, it should be deducted at 1,260, or in case of C, the TDS is to be deducted at every month 6,024 or 6,030, whatever it would be, rounded off. So उतना TDS ABC Limited को काटना पड़ेगा, even though it is the beginning of the financial year. Suppose ABC Limited is just in the month of April. तो अप्रैल में he has to make an estimation of the salary he is paying to their employees. कि पूरे साल में मैं अपने सैलरी कितना पेमेंट करूंगा अपने एम्प्लॉय को, तो ये पूरे साल की इनकम आपको एस्टिमेट करनी है अप्रैल महीने में ही. यहाँ पे फाइनेंशियल ईयर शुरू हो रहा है, तो अप्रैल मई जून जुलाई अगस्त सितंबर अप टू द मार्च, व्हाट कुड बी द सैलरी approximately. That's what the you have to calculate every year's, the entire year's in salary. Then get the information from the deductions which the employees are going to claim, and then based on that identify the taxable income. तो टैक्सेबल इनकम के बाद टैक्स लायबिलिटी डिफाइन करो और जो भी टैक्स लायबिलिटी आती है उस हिसाब से आप इसको डिवाइड करके टीडीएस काटना है. दिस इज द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ द डिडक्टर. समझ में आ रहा है बच्चों?
यस सर. यस सर.
ये सबको करना पड़ता है, कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है. अगर ये जो एम्प्लॉई है उनको अपना पान नंबर एम्प्लॉयर को देना पड़ता है. अगर वो नहीं देते हैं तो ये जो टैक्स लायबिलिटी आती है ये या तो उसके ऊपर जो 20% है, whichever is higher, that should be deducted at the TDS, है ना. The tax is deducted on the taxable income at the rate applicable for the financial year. These rates are given in this. If the employee does not have the PAN, the tax is deductible either at the normal rate or at the rate of 20%, whichever is higher. तो फिर आपको 20% और at the rate applicable normal rate है, दोनों में से जो हायर है वही काटना पड़े. When a person is employed by 2 or more employers during the financial year, अगर एक एम्प्लॉई एक जगह पे जॉब छोड़ के दूसरी जगह पे ज्वाइन होता है, so he has to inform to the new employer that what he has learned or earned from the salary from the previous employer के पास से कितना पैसा मिला वो उसको देना चाहिए, और ताकि नया एम्प्लॉयर है ना. So in case the tax will be deducted by each employer separately. However, the employee is under an obligation to declare the salary received and the tax deducted thereon from the other employers to one the employers by submitting the form in form number 12B. 12B નામનું ફોર્મ છે, એની અંદર એને કહી દેવાનું કે ભાઈ હું આ કંપનીમાં જોઈન થયો એઝ એમ્પ્લોય, એની પહેલા આ કંપનીમાં કામ કરતો હતો કે આ એન્ટિટીમાં કામ કરતો હતો, ત્યાં મને આટલી સેલેરી મળી હતી ને એના ઉપર મારો આટલો ટીડીએસ કપાઈ ગયો છે. That information should be filled up in form number 12B and it should be submitted to the employer. The employer to whom the form number 12B is submitted shall deduct the tax on the basis of the aggregate salary. तो उसके हिसाब से एग्रीगेट सैलरी पे टीडीएस काटना है. Why it is important to learn कि सपोज कि आप कोई कंपनी में जॉब करते हो और आपके वहां पे कोई नए एम्प्लॉय को अपॉइंटमेंट हुआ है और उसका आपको टीडीएस काटना है, तो उसको पूछना पड़ेगा कि भाई તમારા પાછલા પ્રીવિયસ એમ્પ્લોયર ને તમે જેટલી સેલેરી આપી હતી એની ડિટેલ આપો. એ આપે તો સારું છે, ઇટ ઇઝ અંડર એન ઓબ્લિગેશન ટુ પ્રોવાइड यू. ये अगर वो आपको प्रोवाइड नहीं करता है तो फिर आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते. लेकिन अगर वो प्रोवाइड करता है तो आपको उसको कंसीडर करके एग्रीगेट सैलरी के ऊपर आपको टीडीएस काटना है. राइट. Supporting evidence for HRA, LTC and interest on home loans or deduction restriction चैप्टर 6A है ना. ये सारी चीजें आपको फर्निश करनी पड़ेगी. तो हाउस रेंट है तो नेम एंड एड्रेस ऑफ लैंडलॉर्ड, अमाउंट ऑफ रेंट पेड और पेएबल, पान ऑफ द लैंडलॉर्ड वेयर the amount of rent is exceeding 1 lakh, लीव ट्रैवल कंसेशन एक्सपेंडिचर एंड एविडेंस पर्टेनिंग टू द एक्सपेंडिचर वो आपको करने पड़ेंगे. डिडक्शन ऑफ इंटरेस्ट फ्रॉम हाउसिंग लोन ऑब्वियसली, राइट. तो फिर आपको बैंक से सर्टिफिकेट मिल जाएगा, हाउसिंग लोन सर्टिफिकेट, वो सबमिट करना पड़ेगा. और आप किसी भी सेक्शन में डिडक्शन में क्लेम करते हो, एटीसी, एटीसीसी, एटीसीडी, ATD, ATU, whatever the deductions, the proof of it, right. ये सारी चीजें आपको सबमिट करनी पड़ेगी और based on that, if it is valid, the employer will consider and allow you the deduction, and then on the rest of the amount, the employer will deduct the TDS. Right. TDS certificate. Obviously, the TDS certificate should be issued by the employer to the employee. The TDS certificate will be given to the employee in form number 16 annually on or before May 31st after the end of the each year. This actually, has been extended. अभी ये 31st of May नहीं है, लेकिन 15th of June है, क्योंकि TDS भरने की लास्ट डेट 31st of May है और 31st May TDS रिटर्न भर जाएगा, उसके बाद 15 दिन मिल जाते हैं. This certificate has to be given in the paper format. However, if few conditions are satisfied, form number 16 can be given under a digital signature. The employer should also give a statement of perquisites or profit in lieu of salary in form number 12BA. Right? If the salary exceeds 1,50,000. Okay. Salary without TDS or with lower TDS. To get the salary without TDS or with lower TDS, and obviously the persons who does not want that the TDS has been deducted from salary can make an application to the assessing officer under form number 13, which we already learned. तो आप वो कर सकते हो. This is important. Right? Differing the TDS in respect of income pertaining to the employee stock option plan of a startup. कोई स्टार्टअप હોય અને સ્ટાર્ટઅપ એના એમ્પ્લોયી ને ક્યોંકि in most of the startup cases they are very risky. The success of startup depends upon their employees hard work. तो अगर जो इनिशियल स्टेज में स्टार्टअप में एज ए एम्प्लॉय हुए हैं और अगर उसको एम्प्लॉय स्टॉक ऑप्शन प्लान मिला है तो दे आर लायबल टू टैक्स. सो इफ अ एम्प्लॉयर is a startup qualified for deduction under section 80 IAC and it allots any specified security, sweat equity share or ESOP, means employee stock option plan to its employee, TDS on perquisite with effect from April 1, 2000 may be deducted under section 192 within the 14 days. Right? After the expiry of 48 months from the end of the relevant assessment year, or from the date of sale of such specified security or sweat equity shares by the SSE, or from the date of the SSE ceasing to be an employee of the startup, whichever is earlier. तो ये जब कंडीशन सेटिस्फाइड हो जाएगी तो फिर आपको वहां पे TDS काटना पड़ेगा. The tax shall be calculated based on the rate in force for the previous year in which the said security or shares is allotted for transfer to the employee. तो उस हिसाब से आपको TDS काटना पड़ेगा. समझ में आ रहा है बच्चों? सेक्शन 192.
Yes, sir.
This is 100% live topics. When and how the tax is to be deducted at source from the withdrawal from an employee's provident fund scheme. Generally, at the time of retirement, whatever the maturity amount the employee receives at the time of his or her retirement, generally it is exempt from tax. But employee during the employment with the employer, because of the emergency of fund which is required by the employee, they may withdraw from the public provident fund. So in that circumstances, if there are certain conditions are not satisfied, the money which is withdrawn from the provident fund will be liable to tax. So in that circumstances, the TDS will be deducted. So the PF office who is making the payment of provident fund to their employees, they will deduct the TDS. Right? So under section 192A, the tax is deductible as follows. Who is the deductor? The tax is to be deducted by the treasury of the employees provident fund scheme 1952 or any other person authorized under the scheme to make the payment of an accumulated sum to the employee. Which amount is subject to tax deduction? The tax is deductible from the taxable premature withdrawal. So it is premature, so it is not mature, and it is taxable. Taxable premature withdrawal. In other words, tax is deductible from the accumulated lump sum payment at the time of retirement or at the time of leaving the job, in case the employee has not rendered the continuous services of 5 years and she does not fall in any of the 4 cases given below. ચાર માંથી કોઈ પણ જગ્યાએ ફોલ થતો હોવો જોઈએ નહીં. એક તો 5 વર્ષની સર્વિસ કમ્પ્લીટ ના કરી હોય, એની પહેલા પ્રોવિડન્ટ ફંડમાં જે પણ પૈસા જમા થયા હોય ની વિથડ્રો કરે, then it is liable to tax. Or 4 conditions. If the employee has rendered a continuous service with his employer for a period of 5 years or more, for the purpose of calculating 5 years time limit, services rendered with the previous employer shall be included. If the previous employer also maintains the recognized provident fund and the provident fund balance of the employee was transferred by him to the current employer, right? तो फिर ये हो जाएगा, तो फिर यहाँ पे टैक्स नहीं लगेगा. If the employee has been terminated because of certain reasons which are beyond his control, like ill health of the employee, discontinuance of the business by the employer, completion of the project for which the employee was employed, ये सारे रीजन की वजह से अगर उसकी सर्विस टर्मिनेट हो जाती है और वो भी 5 साल से कम है और वो विड्रॉ कर रहा है तो वो टैक्सेबल नहीं होगा और उसके ऊपर टीडीएस नहीं कटेगा. If the employee has resigned before the completion of 5 years, but he joins the another employer who maintains the recognized provident fund, and the provident fund money with the current employer is transferred to the new employer. तो ये ट्रांसफर થયું હોય તો એ વિથડ્રોઅલ કહેવાય નહીં અને એના ઉપર ટેક્સ કપાય નહીં. If the entire balance tending to the credit of the employee is transferred to his account under a pension scheme referred to in section 80 CCD and notified by the central government. So central government notified કરે તો પણ એમાં TDS કાપવાનો થતો નથી. So આ ચાર સિચ્યુએશન માં TDS કાપવાનો થતો નથી, taxable નથી. એ સિવાય જો હોય તો TDS કાપવો પડશે. Out of the lump sum payment, only the amount includable in the total income of the employee is subject to tax deducted at source. The time of tax deduction. The tax is deductible at the time of payment. The time of payment. Rate of TDS. The tax is deductible under section 192A at the rate of 10%. No surcharge in health and education says if recipient is resident. Surcharge in education applicable if the recipient is non-resident. Of the taxable premature withdrawal. If the PAN of the recipient is not available, the tax is deductible at the maximum marginal rate. Right? So current the maximum marginal rate is 42.744. तो फिर आपको उस पे ऊपर TDS काटना पड़ेगा. What is this threshold limit? The tax is deductible, and the tax is not deductible if the taxable premature withdrawal is rupees less than 50,000. 50,000 થી ઓછું હોય તો કાપવાની જરૂર નથી. 50,000 કે એનાથી વધારે હોય તો જ TDS કાપવાની જરૂર છે. Is it possible to avoid the TDS by submitting form number 15G, 15H under section 190? Yes. So that option is available. तो आप ये तीनों में से कोई भी यूज कर सकते हो, 15G, 15H और फॉर्म नंबर 30, राइट? ये यूज हो सकते हैं. इज इट क्लियर बच्चों, समझ में आ रहा है?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Chalo. So it is already 7:45. I have a lecture at 7 o'clock with MCOM final. So I am closing. Tomorrow on in the evening session, morning session, we are going to discuss about the taxation of a company. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Again, our lecture will be at 8 o'clock. I will continue up to 9:30, not more than that. Right? Today I extended quite a long, right? Because we have to solve that example. But tomorrow I will complete at 8 to 9:30, right? And in the evening section, we will continue from section 193 onwards, right? So if you have a time, kindly go through all these sections that we're going to discuss tomorrow. Okay, fine. So thank you very much. Oh, how the recording was going on, or in between the recording was stopped and I was not aware of. So some of the things have not been recorded. Remind me that what are the recordings are available. Fine, these are the recordings. Recordings is available of today as well. It's Tuesday. Anyway, I think 6th or 7th is there. Today is 9th. 9th recording is not there. I think I have started recording. Where does it goes? I don't know. If it is visible, I will upload it. Okay, fine. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow morning.